So the new AGI update can now surpass human performance. Wow. Let's get right into it.
So today actually marks a very historic moment for the AI community, as it is going to be probably regarded as the day where AGI actually happened. Now, if you guys don't know why this is the case, this is because OpenAI today released/announced, I guess you could say, their new O3 model, which is the second iteration of their O1 series, the model that thinks for a long time. Now, if you don't understand why this is potentially AGI, this is because the new system managed to surpass human performance in the ARC benchmark. Now, the reason that the ARC benchmark is such an important benchmark is because it is resistant to memorization.
Sure. So ARC is intended as a kind of IQ test for machine intelligence. And what makes it different from most LLM benchmarks out there is that it's designed to be resistant to memorization. So if you look at the way LLMs work, they're basically this big interpolative memory. And the way you scale up their capabilities is by trying to cram as much knowledge and patterns as possible into them. And by contrast, ARC does not require a lot of knowledge at all. It's designed to only require what's known as core knowledge, which is basic knowledge about things like elementary physics, objectness, counting, that sort of thing.
So just to get it stay saying resistant of memorization. I know what resistant means and memorization. So I'm assuming that it maybe it's saying that it just doesn't, it has a problem with memory, is resistant. Let's move on. Let's see how they explain this.
The sort of knowledge that any 4-year-old or 5-year-old possesses, right? But what's interesting is that each puzzle in ARC is novel, is something that you've probably not encountered before, even if you've memorized the entire internet.
Now, if you want to know what ARC actually looks like in terms of this test that humans are so easily able to pass, but these AI systems currently aren't, you can take a look at the current examples right here in this video.
Example here. AGI is all about having input examples and output examples.
Well, they're good.
They're good? Okay. Input examples and output examples. Now, the goal is you want to understand the rule of the transformation and guess it on the output. So, Sam, what do you think is happening in here?
Probably putting a dark blue square in the empty space.
See,
Right.
yes, that is exactly it. Now, that is really, it's easy for humans to intuitively guess what that is. It's actually surprisingly hard for AI to understand what's going on. What's interesting, though, is AI has not been able to get this problem thus far, and even though that we verified that a panel of humans could actually do it. Now, the unique part about ARC AGI is every task requires distinct skills. And what I mean by that is there won't be another task that you need to fill in the corners with blue squares. But we do that on purpose. And the reason why we do that is because we want to test the model's ability to learn new skills on the fly. We don't just want it to repeat what it's already memorized. That's the whole point here. Now, ARC AGI...
Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me make sure I'm getting this right.
To learn new skills on the fly. We don't just want it to repeat what it's already memorized. That's the whole point here. Now, ARC AGI version 1 took 5 years to go from 0% to 5% with leading frontier models. However, today, I'm very excited to say that O3 has scored a new state-of-the-art score that we have verified. On low compute for O3, it has scored 75.7 on ARC AGI's semi-private holdout set. Now, this is extremely impressive because this is within the compute requirements that we have for our public leaderboard, and this is the new #1 entry on ARC AGI Pub. So congratulations to that.
Now, I know those of you outside the AI community might not think this is a big deal, but this is a really big deal because this is something that we've been trying to solve for, I think, around 5 years now. This is a benchmark that many would have heralded to be the golden standard for AI and would, of course, mark the first time that we've actually managed to get to a system that can actually outperform humans at a task that traditionally AI systems would particularly fail at. Now,
So, wow. They're already considering this time a golden era for AI, and it's only the beginning. So imagine what's to come. Wow.
What was interesting was that they had two versions. So we had O3 with low tuning and we had O3 with high tuning. So the O3 with low tuning is the low reasoning effort. And this is the model that operates with minimum computational effort, which is optimized for speed and cost efficiency. And this one is suitable for simpler tasks where deep reasoning is not required. So, basic coding, straightforward tasks. And then, of course, you have the high-tuned one, which is where the model takes more time and resources to analyze and solve problems. And this is optimized for performance on complex tasks requiring deeper reasoning or multi-step problem solving. And what we can see here is that when we actually, tune the model and make it think for longer, we can see that we actually managed to surpass where humans currently are. Now, what's crazy about this is that the people that have created the ARC AGI benchmark said that the performance on ARC AGI highlights a genuine breakthrough in novelty adaptation. This is not incremental progress. We are in new territory. So they start to ask, is this AGI? O3 still fails on some very easy tasks, indicating fundamental differences with human intelligence. And the guy that you saw at the beginning, Francis Cholet, actually spoke about how he doesn't believe that this is exactly AGI, but it does represent a big milestone on the way towards AGI. He says there's still a fair number of easy ARC AGI 1 tasks that O3 can't solve, and we have early indications that ARC AGI 2 will remain extremely challenging for O3. So he's stating that it shows that it's feasible to create unsaturated, interesting benchmarks that are easy for humans, yet impossible for AI without involving specialist knowledge. And he states now, which is, some people could argue that he's moved the goal, that we will have AGI when creating such evals become outright impossible. But this is a little bit contrast to what he said earlier this year. Take a look at what he said 6 months ago about the benchmark surpassing 80%, which it did today.
Turn the question around to you. So suppose that it's the case that in a year, a multimodal model can solve ARC, let's say get 80%,
Sure.
Whatever the average human would get, then AGI?
Quite possibly, yes. I think if you start, so honestly, what I would like to see is an LLM type model solving ARC at like 80%, but after having only been trained on core knowledge related stuff.
Now, one of the limitations of the model is actually the compute cost. So you can see right here that he says, does this mean that the ARC price competition is beaten? He says, no, the ARC price competition targets the fully private dataset, which is a different and somewhat harder evaluation. But the ARC price is, of course, the one where your solutions must run with a fixed amount of compute, which is about 10 cents per task. And the reason that that is really interesting is because I'm not sure you guys may have seen this, but if we actually take a look down the bottom here, you can see that O3 high tuned, the amount of compute that is being put into the model there means that this model costs around $1,000 per task, which is pretty expensive if you're trying to use that AI for anything at all.
So that's the catch. That's the catch. Intelligent as hell, but $1,000 per task is crazy.
I think these models that search over many different solutions are going to be really expensive. And we can see that reflected here with this one being over $1,000 per task, which is ridiculously expensive when you think about using it to perform any kind of task. Of course, as we've seen with AI, cost will eventually come down. So the fact that they've managed to get the benchmark is just the very best thing. We can use the similarities between how technology was pretty bulky in the early days, like the big TVs, the really bulky phones. But now with technology, you find ways to become more and more efficient, and eventually you do things faster and of course cheaper. So it's quite likely that this will happen in AI too. And what I do find crazy about this is that, 2 years ago, he said that the ARC AGI benchmark fully solved is not going to be within the next 8 years.
But I totally agree with him. Things will become more affordable like they have with everything else. And if you notice, even with AGI or AI, when AI kind of first released, it was like, you either had to be subscribed. There was a lot going on with it. And now it seems like it's accessible to anybody, especially now you got Instagram, you got the X app. If you're able to create an account and just check the meta, there has a new meta search now update for like the last 4 months. Now anybody could just create an AI image and things like that. Whereas before, you had to sign up, you'll probably get a free trial, but after that, you'd have to pay some monthly fees for that. So I could definitely see this, breaking down. I'm sure the billionaires would already have these type of AI, AGI, and robots and all that where it costs $1,000 per task because they could probably afford that. But as far as just for society itself, it may take some time. Now let's see. It's looking like they're saying about 8 years. But let's finish what they have to say right here.
And he says 70%, hopefully less than 8 years, perhaps 4 or 5. Of course, you can see
that was 2 years ago. So that would be 6 years now.
AI managing to speed past most people's predictions. We also got the fact that it did very well on the SWE bench, which is of course a very hard software engineering bench. And I'm guessing that if you are a software engineer, this is probably not the best news for you, but I'm sure that now with a bunch of people who are now coding, there's probably a lot more demand for software engineers that actually understand the code that's actually being written here. But this is actually rather interesting because one thing that I realized when, doing this video was the fact that this is actually O2 and not O3. Just want to go on a tangent quickly here because whilst I was reading this, breakthrough about O3, one thing that I needed to remember is that this is actually the second iteration of the model. I think some people might be thinking that O3 is OpenAI's third iteration, but O2 is simply being skipped because there is a conflict with O2, which is a British mobile service provider. So the fact that this is only the second iteration of the model, it does go to show that potentially O3 or even O4 is going to be quite a large jump and might reach benchmark saturation. Now, we also look at the math benchmarks and the PhD science level benchmarks. We can see that there is a decent improvement there as well. I do think, though, that this is sort of reaching the benchmark saturation area because we can see this one on competition math is around 96.7%, and this one is 87.7%. And like I said before, one of the things that most people are starting to say is that they're like, okay, AI has slowed down because it's no longer increasing at the same rate as it was before. What we have to understand is that as these benchmarks get to 95 plus or around that 89%, the incremental gains are going to be harder and harder to reach because number one, you only have 10% left to get. And number two, it's quite likely that 3 to 5% of all the questions are contaminated, meaning that there are errors in those questions anyways, which means that 100% is simply not possible on certain benchmarks, which is why they decided to create the Frontier Math benchmark. Now, at the time when the benchmark was released,
I might have to rewatch this video like 10 times to really catch everything and also research some of these words and meanings because I'm still, getting my feet wet when it comes to these topics. Now, I do work with AI a lot with what I do with my job where I do creation, content creation, things like that. However, staying updated to this is very crucial and it's like mandatory, it's a must. We need to stay updated so that we can stay, prepared for the times that's to come because this already seems to be a handful to understand. But the more you know, the better, so I'm glad we're able to, create this channel and there's other channels as well that we could cover to keep us updated and prepared for sure. Moving on.
which I think around 2 or 3 months ago, these were the current models that could do only 2% on these questions. You can see at the lead was Gemini 1.5 Pro, Claude 3 Sonnet, and you can see O1 Preview and O1 Mini were there. But for those of you that haven't realized just how good O2/O3 is, this is a model that gets 25%. So this is something that is really, really incredible when it comes to research math. And you have to understand that this kind of math is super, super difficult, and all of those questions are completely novel. So the previous benchmarks that we recently had aren't truly showing the capabilities. I mean, think about it like this, okay? When we take a look at these benchmarks, you can see that, okay, you would say maybe the model's gotten, 10% better overall, which is just not true, because if we actually look at the really hard benchmarks where it's really solving unseen math problems, we can see that there is a 20 times improvement over the current state of the art, which is just absolutely incredible. So I think this is probably the very important image that people need to realize, because you can't compare this kind of model, even though it does do a massive increase on these kind of benchmarks, but you can't really compare it to this where it's having, this insane level of scores. Now, what's important to...
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to take in. I'll tell you that. It's definitely a lot to take in. We gonna work through it though, for sure. This the goal, to stay updated, stay educated. Let's go.
Understand is that Noah Brown, the person who works on reasoning at OpenAI, said that O3 is going to continue in that trajectory. So for those of you who are thinking, maybe AI is slowing down, it is clear that that is not the case. Now, interestingly enough, we also got Sam Altman in an interview talking about what he believes AGI to be. And I think, like I said before, the definition is constantly shifting and constantly changing.
It used to be a term that people used a lot, and it was this really smart AI that was very far off in the future. As we get closer to it, I think it's become a less useful term. People use it to mean very different things. Some people use it to mean something that's not that different than O1, and some people use it to mean true super intelligence, something smarter than like all of humanity put together. We try now to use these different levels. We have a 5-level framework. We're on level 2 with agents now. Sorry, with reasoning now, rather than the binary of is it AGI or is it not. I think that became too coarse as we get closer. But I will say, by the end of next year, end of 25, I expect we will have systems that can do truly astonishing cognitive tasks, like where you'll use it and be like, that thing is smarter than me at a lot of hard problems.
So now I can see the only thing here is that if you are a safety researcher, he says, please consider applying to help test O3 Mini and O3 because he's excited to get these out for general availability soon. And he's extremely proud of the work that OpenAI have been doing to creating these amazing models. So it will be interesting to see when these models are actually released, what people are going to do with them, what they're going to build, and of course, what happens next. If you enjoyed this video,
Man, there's a few things I have to say in this video, right? About this video. And it really it's really shocking to know. One thing that I caught is that they're saying this new AGI is able to continue learning as it goes. You know, it's not like it's you put so much memory into it and then that's all it knows. It's actually able to learn as it goes, as if it has its own consciousness. Now, the reason I had a question in my last one of my other videos where I said, well, humans create these, you know, AI things, and a lot of this seems to be man-made. So how can this be more smarter or more intelligent than a human can, right? But also we're talking about, you know, robots, right? That don't necessarily, or robots are just like artificial intelligence that don't have any emotion. They don't have any type of real life situations they have to deal with. They don't have to pay bills. I don't think it's going to get to that point, right? So considering that us as humans do deal with a lot of things mentally still, you know, we run through 1,000 thoughts a day that could fatigue us. And when we compare that to AI and robots and all this, you know, it's they won't have to worry about these things. They're just strictly there to learn as they say with the new AGI, that they're able to learn as they go. So that becomes something scary where it seems like the creation becomes more intelligent than the creator. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Please make sure to hit that like button to help us grow here in Brain Gain AI. Thank you. I'm Vic, and we're out.